Good evening and welcome to RFL. I am Richard French. Now, 3 hours from now, President Biden, he will address a joint session of Congress for the first time. And this will look a whole lot different than prior primetime addresses from the commander-in-chief. It'll be delivered from the House chamber instead of a packed house of more than 1,500 people. Only about 200 seats are going to be filled due to COVID protocols. And of course, people will be spread out. Also, for the first time ever, 2 women will be right behind the President of the United States, as Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Vice President Kamala Harris. They will be at the front of the chamber with Joe Biden. Now, the president, he heads into tonight with the majority of the American public approving of the job that he's doing. His poll numbers, they are 10 points above water. His approval rating sitting at a solid 53%. Plus, people have a positive opinion of the way that the president is handling many of the major issues facing our country. As you can see from this graphic, 2/3 approve of his response to COVID, and more than half approve of his handling of racial injustice, the environment, the economy, as well as taxes. He is, however, underwater on immigration, gun policy, and foreign affairs. One of the centerpieces of tonight's speech, it will be the president's American Families Plan. That's a nearly $2 trillion package that's going to include free community college, universal pre-K, paid family leave and medical leave, and expanded child tax credits, as well as a host of other issues. Now, the president, his speech is expected to be pretty wide-ranging, also covering COVID, of course, and the vaccine, immigration and the border, and social justice and policing. It's also going to provide a huge contrast to what we saw 4 years ago, the president that we endured for that term as Donald Trump, and the contrast when it comes to focus of tonight. Well, then and now, that focus is what we're going to talk about next in Where I Stand. Okay, decent people from both sides of the political spectrum, they can debate about the scope as well as the math of Biden's signature proposals. Now, some may think, hey, these plans are too ambitious. Others, I've heard say, they don't go far enough. The price tag, it is steep, and if you're in the 1%, suddenly the free ride, it got pricey. I happen to think that Biden, he had no choice but to go big given the America that he inherited. He walked into an office facing a lethal pandemic, an economic crisis, a recent insurrection for crying out loud, and a tinderbox of racial injustice. A divided America awaited him, with the hard right being poked and prodded to believe the big lie of some stolen election, while being goaded to disbelieve things like science and medicine when it came to vaccines and mitigation. This was a hand no one would want to be dealt with walking in for day one. So far, though, I think so good. Biden's team has gotten shots into people's arms and cash into their wallets. And he's accomplished things. Unemployment, it's way down since he took office. The stock market that Trump promised would crater if Biden were to win has in fact doubled its performance in his first 100 days compared to the Donalds. But of equal importance to the economic indicators is that we don't wake up every morning dreading to turn on the news or look at our phone to learn of the latest crisis or indecency sparked by the last guy's itchy Twitter finger. Biden, it's crazy, but he's actually interested in doing his job instead of watching TV for hours on end or playing golf. Amazingly, this president puts the country first instead of acting like a moody teenager, only with less impulse control. So compare the two's first 100 days. Biden, he's been scandal-free, and with Trump, we were rightfully worried he was actually a puppet of the Kremlin. Biden actually tells the truth. By the 100-day mark, Trump had already lied more than 500 times on record in public. Biden, he surrounded himself with qualified, experienced adults. What did Trump do? He gave us Javanka and a rogues gallery of incompetents, lunatics, and sleazy conmen whose first priority was self-enrichment. Biden has repeatedly tried, I didn't say succeed, but he's tried to unite this country in purpose and resolve. He's shown compassion and empathy after tragedy and loss, and he has tried to have grounded optimism that if we all do our part, better days will lie ahead for all of us. Conversely, what was it like 4 years ago? Trump used his first 3+ months to have a pity party over an inauguration crowd. He attacked athletes who kneeled, and he talked about his ratings for press conferences. Biden, he's reached out to allies and he's condemned dictators and enemies of America. Think about 4 years ago. Trump, he abandoned every treaty. He had turned his back on our friends, and he puckered up to thugs like Putin, Kim, al-Sisi, and Erdogan. Now, later in the program, we'll discuss the GOP's inexcusable and inexplicable addiction to Trump, even after the insurrection and defeat after defeat at the ballot box. But just consider how still to this day they can't bring themselves to even follow through on the January 6th commission. I don't recognize the GOP even after they don't have Trump to respond to his tweets anymore. Listen, we have got a lot of challenges in this country. We have difficult problems that lie ahead in the immediacy and things long term, like, for example, global warming and so much more. It's not going to be easy. But if we're honest, whoever we voted for, don't you wake up easier knowing that we have adults in the room and that crises will not be self-generated out of the Oval Office? Doesn't that feel a little better? Don't you breathe a little easier? Don't you have less anxiety? Maybe it's more boring, but I think it's a much better America. All right, when we come back, more on tonight's speech, the president's first 100 days, and the rift in the Republican Party. We're joined by our friend from ABC News, political director Rick Klein.